Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being there. My name is Maria Osman. I'm Director of Global Education Initiatives at IE. And again, it's an honor to have you here connected today and to have Rafael Sarandeses with us today too. Well, this is part of a series of dialogues we've set up from IE just to share with you and with everyone who wants to listen to us the best asset we have, which is the expertise of our professors. In these different times we are living, all the different insights and inputs we're receiving from our professors are really useful and important. So and very helpful to help us cope with this new situation. So let me briefly introduce Rafael and we'll get started. Okay, so Rafael is an associate professor at IE. He's passionate about career development. He's a coach, and he's head of financial services in Talengo, International Executive Research Firm. So Rafael is going to share some really useful insights today. Well, Rafa, nothing more to add. The arena is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Maria. Well, thank you everyone for being here. We had a great webinar this morning for the early birds in Europe. So we're going to be hopefully providing value to you guys as well. I'm going to share my screen so that we can see. Okay, there you go. Can I, 1 second. I am trying to get to the chat. I can only see there you go. Here it is. Got it. Okay, so you should see my screen with the first page of the presentation, and you should be able to see me on camera and hear me on audio. Can you just type 1 if you can do all 3 things? Perfect. All right. Thank you so much. So let's get started. Now, this presentation comes from a place of discomfort, right? We're all being forced to work in challenging conditions. It's not the same thing to work from home when, you know, your kids are in school, you may have some help at home if you have a family, and you may have a quiet place where you can really focus, right? It's very different doing that or having to work at home when, in my case, for instance, I have a 4-month-old. Actually, my office, as you can see my camera, this is my baby's room. My baby is not here now. So all this to say, less than ideal circumstances, right? Trying to get work done with the cleaning robot going underneath your desk, not great. Trying to get work done when you're just like me, sleeping poorly because my kid needs to be fed every 4 hours, not great. So what I'm going to be sharing with you are some best practices. I've been a freak about productivity for most of my life. I apply a lot of these concepts in my coaching practice when I work with executives, when we get to time management and effectiveness. So hopefully you'll extract some value out of these practices, and you will be able to implement some of these things in your life, and also trying to make whatever circumstance you're having to live a little bit easier. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a clear message. It's really important that we turn down the noise. We're all now, you know, plugged to the latest news, and we're all focusing on the numbers here in Spain. It's terrible. We're close to 20,000 deaths. And it's just so easy to get sucked into the rhythm of the last piece of news or the last tick in the stock market, if we're looking how our money is fluctuating maybe by 5%, 10% every day. So it's really important that we start finding the times when we want to really be informed, and maybe that's the evening or the early morning. But it's important that for the rest of the day, we find a way to isolate ourselves, because knowing the very latest or being dragged into that noise is not going to make us productive. It's going to make us less productive. So first thing, quite a common sense, but at the same time, difficult to do, and we will have to find a way to do it. But it's important that we start subtracting ourselves from the noise. Why am I saying this? Well, I'm saying this because there's something called the circle of influence and the circle of concern. Now, if we want to get back in control, back into the control seat of that helicopter, right? There are three things that we need to be very clear about. The first thing is, and you may have seen this is part of a great book by Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I'll be recommending some readings as we go through the presentation, and the I team will recap them for you. I'll type it for now. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. This is a book that changed my life. What is the basic message? So if I have this and I drop it, right, it's going to fall. And it's going to fall because there's something called gravity. And if you guys want to fight gravity, be my guest. But it's quite frustrating to try and change things that we cannot really change, right? So either we play by the rules, and gravity is one of them, or we're just going to be quite unhappy. But being unhappy is not going to change our life for the better. So we cannot just be trying to change things that we cannot control. So the circle of concern is where you put all of those things like the weather and, to some extent, maybe, some clients that are very difficult to deal with, things that you cannot really have a direct power in changing. Those are things that you need to place in that bucket, and you need to forget about that bucket, because the only thing that you can do is influence the stuff that you can influence, or directly control the stuff that you can control. What can we influence? This is like navigating on a sailboat, right? Navigating on a sailboat, you never go A to B on a direct line. You always have to cruise depending on the wind. So influencing means being so proactive in trying to find ways of changing things, that some of the stuff that are, outside of our immediate remit, we can actually go and kind of modify them, right? What are those things that you cannot do anything right away, but if you kind of link actions one after the other, you're going to have an influence in the end result, right? So that is the circle of influence. And at this stage, what we really need to focus on at this stage is our circle of control. The circle of control is basically what we do with our time. How are we using our time is entirely dependent on what we decide that to be. Today, we're going to see some techniques to try to create a little bit of order in today's chaos, so that the circle of control that you see in the slide here becomes bigger and starts capturing part of the influence, right? And maybe by doing that, the circle of influence starts capturing part of the circle of concern. But the most important thing is to be very clear about the stuff that we can control, and focus all of our energy in becoming as proactive as possible to make sure that for that stuff that we can control, we can definitely do something about it. So this is a message that is going to influence the rest of the presentation. Now, moving on, what can we control, right? What is the stuff that we can really exert some power? Definitely, we can control our mindset, and we're going to see exactly what that looks like. We can definitely control our environment. We can, it's a fallacy. I don't know if you guys have ever read Marshall Goldsmith. I'm going to give you another recommendation. Goldsmith here. The book is Triggers, right? This book is amazing and basically explain explains why we are the easiest people to fool. We fool ourselves because we think we can control the environment. That's actually not true. The environment controls us. So if we're not able to set the right environment, we're just going to constantly be triggered into doing things that were not our initial intention. Okay, so we're going to see how that happens. We're going to control. We can control our intention by as a byproduct of controlling the environment. We can definitely bring intention to how we plan our weeks, and we're going to talk about that. And we can definitely control how much work ethic and effort we put in doing all of this, right? It doesn't really matter. This is a product, by the way. You need to multiply mindset by environment, by intention, by effort. That equals productivity in times of stress. If any of these factors is a zero, then it is not going to work, right? If your mindset is not right, it doesn't really matter if your environment, intention, or effort are there, not going to work. If you're not putting any effort, it doesn't really matter how much designing you do in the initial phases. So consider this a product that ensures that you're getting your productivity right, even in a situation like the one we're living through. So how do we go about our mindset? Well, the first thing is that, as Marshall Goldsmith says, there are internal triggers and there are external triggers. What are the internal triggers? So what are the things that are in our brains, right, that are preventing us from doing effective work when their circumstances are not ideal? Well, the first one is we are designed to escape pain. Now, you guys are familiar for sure with the term procrastination. This in Greek, it comes from a Greek term called akrasia, which is going against our better judgment. That's what akrasia is. Procrastination means knowing what to do, but not being able to act on it and acting on something else instead. Why do we procrastinate? Because there's something called the fight or flight response, which basically gets triggered when we feel some sort of pain or threat. And you don't feel physical pain when you're in front of a very difficult task, right? But the fact that it's very difficult and you don't want to devote the energy and the time that it requires creates pain in your brain, right? Pain in your brain means that you're going to try and seek something that satisfies you very quickly so that you can kind of go back to equilibrium. And that's why instead of doing what you should be doing right now, you're looking into your social media profiles, or you're just stepping out your desk, going to the fridge and taking Coke, right? That's what you're doing to release that pressure. So we are designed to escape pain. Now, how can we try and get hold of that and try to manage that, right? How can we put that pain into the circle of control, into the circle of influence? Well, when we feel the discomfort, try to note it down, right? A great tool to go about curing procrastination is actually journaling, right? Try to write down the task you're trying to tackle, why you don't feel like doing it, and maybe what is the very first step to start working on it. Sometimes I write to myself, open the Microsoft Word processor, right? That's the first step. Well, how much effort does it take? Little, right? So let's do that. When you start chaining one little step with another little step with another little step, you're getting yourself dragged back into what should be your focus. So this is a great tool. Identify where the discomfort is coming from and try to journal yourself out of the discomfort and into whatever task you're going to be doing. We're going to check a method in a minute to see exactly how we do that. Now, working on a healthy mindset. So we've talked about the discomfort. What about building a positive, healthy mindset? Well, one of the first things that I would recommend is to be very, very clear about your decide why, right? Who is the person you need to become to get out of this situation, to get out of this tunnel, to not lose your clients, to not lose touch with the rest of your colleagues in the office? Who do you need to become? What is that person? You see, this person here, she could be an avatar, right? She could be a representation of that image that we want to build about ourselves. So be clear about why the things that are important, right? And that is going to help you actually get a sense of where your priorities lie and if the priorities are rightly set up. Okay. Then, of course, acceptance. We need to stop defending ourselves from the stuff that we don't want to do, and or the situation that we're living through. So, you know, let's I always talk about this example. If you are a car maker and you are pumping up 2,000 cars per day, but the current situation only allows you to pump out 750 cars per day, you know, not accepting that you can only do 750 cars per day is just basically trying to shoot yourself in the foot, right? Accept whatever reality you're having to go through, because there's very little in some of the things, right? You know, we talked about the circle of control. So if you're not accepting, you know, that we're not, some of the stuff is not going to fall in here, and maybe because of the current situation, this is going from here to here, is shrinking, and now we need to regain control so that we can push it back out, right? But acceptance is the process by which we really understand where the control lies and what are the things that maybe we used to control but now sit on the circle of concern. That's how we go about it. Then we move to willpower depletion. So willpower depletion is actually real. What this means is that as you go through the day, you'll find yourself more and more challenged by the temptations and by the environment triggers. So you can look it up, willpower depletion. You wake up in the morning, first thing, you're supercharged up. You're ready to do what's most difficult. If you don't use the hours when your brain is primed to high performance for the stuff that really matters, what's going to happen is that you're going to do the silly stuff at the beginning, and then the stuff that really counts, you're going to try and tackle that when the time is wrong for you. This pairs very well with the circadian rhythms, right? The way that humans have a rhythm that lasts 23 hours, not exactly 24, is 23 hours. And basically what that says is that you're supercharged up in the morning, and then you go through a valley between 2 and 5 in the afternoon, and then you go up again, and you start being a better performer like at 8 or 9 in the evening. So knowing this, try to schedule the stuff that you need to do around the high energy levels, and maybe try to combine that with, we'll see about that in a minute, with some of the domestic tasks that you and your partner are going to have to share. Maybe you have kids, right? I have to bottle feed my baby every 4 hours. And sometimes it's me that has to do it. So I'm not going to be able to be on all the conference calls that I would like to be, right? I actually have to feed my baby after this call. So, reality is what it is. So let's try to schedule, and we'll see how that works, the different things that we need to do, and use the high energy slots for the stuff that really matters. And then, of course, this is a given, but sometimes we forget about the simple stuff. Positive talk, positive self-talk is a must. So this pairs very well with acceptance. If we're not accepting what we're going through, we're not going to be able to find the flooring from which we can then build back, right? We need to really be very conscious of what we need to accept, and then we need to talk ourselves out of it, right? We need to be conscious of the stuff that we are good at. We need to find relief in the fact that we're going to keep the machine going, even if the circumstances are less than ideal. Now, when we move towards the environment, right? We talked about the mindset. Now we're going to talk about the environment. Routines account for 70% of successes. The most effective people in the business world are those that have created habits that basically drive them through the stuff that needs to happen, so that they don't have to think twice what they need to do, right, to perform well. Their brains have created circuits where they have habits for physical training. They have habits for how they tackle their client calls. They're trying to get themselves into different habits. Well, the first one is be wary of your office, right? I said it before, you're seeing on the screen the nice balloons, right? This is my baby's room. But during most of the hours of the day, I can use this room and I'm not going to be disturbed, right? And I have brought here my desk, and I have all the setup, quite orderly, and I have my Wi-Fi extension. So I've crafted something that I know that whenever I need to block time to really get the work done, I'm going to be working in a place that basically drags me into a working mentality. So no more working out of the couch, no more with with your spouse, maybe watching TV or reading in the room, no more working out of kitchen tables. Try to be very, very thorough as to how you prepare your office space. Get dressed right away, right? I got dressed tomorrow. I woke up at 6 in the morning to feed my baby, and I got dressed. And by the way, I'm not wearing slippers. I'm wearing actual shoes, right? Why? Because if you're not wearing shoes, it's like you couldn't get out of your house. So don't wear slippers, because slippers are the stuff that you wear on a Saturday morning, right? When you're chilling out with your family or whatever. Try to get into a mindset and try to get yourself into an environment of work, of dynamism, right? That really makes a difference. Predefine your starting and ending times for your working day. So knowing that you're going to be starting your day at 8 and you're going to finish at 7, and that at 7 you're going to leave the room you prepared for work and you're going to stop working. Dick, I'm sorry, mate, you need to get out of your slippers. So it's important that you start the day at a certain time. You have your breaks, and you end the day at some point, cleared for everyone, even for your partner, right? So that she or he knows that they can count on you for some other stuff. We're going to see exactly how we're going to be batching things in the calendar in a minute, but it's important that we know exactly when we start and when we end. This is all about getting ourselves into a rhythm, okay? These are all very, very little things, but I can assure you guys, success is not a combination of life-changing stuff. Success is a combination of very little adjustments that we can get working one with the other, so that we just basically get ourselves into that rhythm. It's about the small daily things, okay? It's not about today I'm going to transform my life. Forget it. Get started with something that is easy and just try to build a habit after the other one. And of course, try to schedule the domestic course with your partner, right? You need to get the times when you're going to have to give a hand, or when it's going to be you actually leading some of the tasks that need to happen at home, right? And that goes back to my example. You're not going to be able to pump 2,000 cars and you have to go back to 900 cars, because the time you needed to pump another 1,000 cars is going to, shopping, going to the pharmacist, or cooking, right? Then so be it. That's our reality. So let's find the base, right? Let's see how many hours. Do we have 5 hours net every day? Okay. We know exactly how much time we have, so we can plan accordingly, with that allowance. But let's not be naive about the time that we have or we don't have, okay? Now, we're going to talk about sharpening up, and I'm going to give you some tips that I've put to work to good use with myself and with clients, and they really, yeah, Juliana, I think that you're going to be getting the presentation from the I team. Otherwise, I'm happy to send it to the team and you get it. So don't worry about that. Sharpening up. Okay, first thing, time box a day. So if you have 10 hours or 8 hours or 7 hours in the day, and you know that, based on how much you need to work at home, and your the stuff that that you need to get done, you're only going to count on 4 hours of focus work. Okay, box that. Okay, and we're going to use our calendar, because our calendar is the boss, right? If we can think that we're going to be told by our calendar what we need to do next, we take away what? We take away uncertainty, right? We take away choice. We want to make sure that we're playing in automatic as much as possible, because when we take away choice, we take away the chance to procrastinate, right? You're choosing between connecting on LinkedIn and getting on with that 30-page proposal. Trust me, I know exactly what you prefer. So if the calendar says that now is when you're getting that, then at least you have something cueing you into the activity. As to favorite calendar apps, I use Fantastical. It works with Mac and iPhone, and it's really powerful. I'm going to write it here. Fantastical. So calendar is the boss. Pomodoro technique. You may have heard this. Basically, this was invented by a guy in Italy. It basically combines 4 cycles of 25 minutes of focused work and 5 minutes of rest. So you do that 4 times over. And when you've done those 25 plus 5 cycles 4, you then go to a longer 15-minute break. I personally, I need to bed myself into whatever I'm doing. So for me, 25 minutes is not too much. It's not enough. I normally get to 40, 45 minutes, but then I do a 15-minute break in the middle. So my batches are 45, 15, okay? But this is really useful because you can even have a counter. You can have a stopwatch. And you see the time running, and then you become aware that you cannot be wasting that time. All right. Interstitial journaling. So I'm going to show you something that I use because I try to walk the talk as much as possible. So I'm going to show you something that I use that helps me really be very focused. I still need to complete some of the hours here because I've been back to back on webinars. But so what I do every morning, I write down the 3 things I need to get done, right? And then I write down slots of 30 minutes, the stuff that I'm completing and what is that I'm going to get to do after whatever I'm doing. So this is called interstitial journaling. You start a task by telling to yourself what you're going to be doing and what is the first step that you need to take to get that done, right? And then when you're done, you write a line to recap what you just did, right? You give yourself a high five if you complete it, or you give yourself a little bit of feedback, and then you tell yourself exactly how you're going to transition to the next one, right? You just say, okay, look, I just finished this presentation, and then I'm going to take 5 minutes, and after 5 minutes, I'm going to move back to drawing that proposal that I need to draw. That's important. Why? You're priming your brain. You're leaving less space for procrastination. Procrastination comes from having the choice. If you don't have the choice, or if you're priming your attention towards what needs to happen next, it's going to help you not lose sight of what needs to happen. And then we go to asynchronous communication. Now, because we're all working remotely, or most of us are working remotely, we're not going to have, excuse me, we're not going to be at risk of having someone coming by our desk and talking to us. We're going to be able to go to Slack or whatever tool we're using, contributing, but also we can remove ourselves from that tool, right? We can remove ourselves from being in that chat. So we can go back and forth and communicate with the team in a batched way. So we don't have to be constantly on the chat or on the email, because otherwise that's all you're going to be doing through the day. You don't want to be the person that is just managing email, right? You need to get your work done. So do that in batches, right? I don't know, 8 in the morning, noon for emails, then 5 o'clock, right? And you start going, talk to your team when needed, and then removing yourself from that communication. And that's going to allow you to build a lot of space for focus. All right? Jaime, the interstitial journaling is I need to, let's say I'm finishing this webinar. So I'm going to write myself in that page that I showed you on the camera. I'm going to write, look, I just finished my webinar. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and then I'm going to get into the proposal. And to get to the proposal, the first thing I need to do is look in my archives and download this and that file and open the word processor, right? I just write it down. And then when I go back, I read that. And it's priming my brain not to lose sight of what needs to happen next, right? And then when I'm finished with the task, I give myself a little feedback. And what you're going to have is like a series of one-liners telling you how to go in and get out of the different things that you're doing through the day. By the way, this is going to give you a lot of information, because if you were thinking that doing that proposal is taking you 60 minutes and it ends up taking 90 minutes, you're going to know. You're not going to be wondering at the end of the day where all the time went when you only did one proposal. You're going to be conscious that it took you 3 times as much to build the proposal as you initially budgeted. And you should be learning from that. Next time, you're going to be able to budget maybe more time. So this is a great way to keep yourself on task and at the same time, gather a lot of information. Now, moving on. No problem. I'm going to give you a tip that I've been using for a long time, and it's really transformed the way that I'm executing and being productive. And I call this the 5-3 rule, or the 5-3 method, right? Now, what is this about? Trust me, not rocket science. Super simple, but as most of the stuff that is simple, super effective. So, what is the 5 referring to? Well, on Sundays, I sit down for an hour, 60 minutes, and I think about what are the 5 things that I need to have finished by the end of the following week. Now, I'm going to let that sink in. What are the 5 top priorities that I'm going to be really proud that, if I finish those 5 things by the end of Friday, I'm going to really be proud of my week, regardless of anything else. If I just completed those 5 things, it would make a good week, right? So what are those 5 things? And then what I do is I have planned my week, and I'm going to tell you exactly how to put that in your calendars. So don't fret about that. But I have a clear sense of where I need to go through the week. Now I'm going to think in terms of days. And what I do is, at the end of the day, so on Sunday, I will plan the 5 weeks for the week, the 5 things for the week, and then I will plan the 3 things that I need to have completed by the end of Monday. So you're combining a longer-term view of what needs to happen through the week with a micro view of the 2 or 3 things that you need to complete by the end of each day that is going to make you feel proud, and that is going to serve you, put everything, on turbo, right? This is the process. How do we put this to work? Well, we need to use this method to plan with intention, and therefore to win the week. How do we win the week? Well, first thing we just said, right? Sunday, book 60 minutes, prep for the week ahead. Okay? Second, run while you're doing that. So you're sitting down on Sunday night, you're trying to figure out the 5 things you would like to get done by the end of a week. That's going to take some work. Why? Because if I just told you to do a list of the stuff you want to complete for the week, you're going to come up with 20 things. You may end up having 20 things in your to-do list, but there have to be 5 that have to be underlined in red. And if push comes to shove, you're going to have to choose between getting one of those 5 things that are underlined in red done, or do some of the other 10 or 15 things that you have. The idea with this exercise is that regardless of how many of the non-prioritized areas you're going to be tackling, those 5 things need to get done, right? So how do you do that? Well, you run through your areas of responsibility. In my case, I have finance, I have self and family and relationships. I have my work as a head of financial services and principal of Talengo consulting firm in executive search and leadership development. And then I have a 4th bucket, which is my teaching activity, my divulging activity, and my executive coaching activity and career coaching, right? And what I do is that I have them in front of me, right? I'll draw them in my iPad, and I'll think about, okay, what needs to get pushed in these 4 buckets by the end of the following week. And sometimes I won't have anything to push on the finance side, right? Or I may not have anything particular to push on my self or family side, but I will have a lot of stuff to push on my coaching practice, and maybe 1 or 2 things to push on my consulting business. Or everything, 5 things will be just down to the consulting business, because those are where the priorities lie. But you do the mapping of your areas of responsibility. You map up the things that need to happen on those 4 buckets for the week. And then it becomes a lot easier to pick up just 5 across the 4 buckets. That is absolutely necessary that they happen by the end of the week. And then what do? Well, you book, there's a typo here, you book 5 slots, right? Of 90 to 120 minutes each in your calendar. And the first thing that goes in your calendar by the end of Sunday for the following week are the 5 slots that are going to give you the time to tackle the 5 things you want to do, right? The second thing you do is you then book the 3 slots of 45 to 60 minutes that you're going to need on Monday to do the 3 things that you think is important that you get done by Monday night. So this is a super simple method. You combine the week view and you combine the daily view. 5 things for the week, and then every day you try to push 2 to 3 things every day. Maybe one of the 3 things for every day is one of those weekly 5s. Perfect, right? But the idea is that you combine the micro view with the longer term view. And I'm not saying you need to focus on 10 things on the week or 17 things on the day. If you are in doubt, choose less, because you're going to have unexpected stuff coming at you. So it's important that the priorities that you set for the week at the beginning of the week, they're still the priority as you go through the week. If you end up in the week having done none of the 5 things that you decided you needed to do for the week, then you need to sit down and really think very hard at what you're doing. Because that means that either you're not prioritizing the right stuff, or you're not in control of your time, and you really need to start saying no to people or no to things. Control the inputs, not the outcomes. While my interstitial journaling is giving me an idea of how I'm using my time, the most important thing is that I know where my time is going, not that I think there was a question in the chat here, if this lot is over and you haven't finished, what you do? Well, I mean, if you need to finish, then no, you need to book 5, Saverio. There's a typo there, right? So it's called weekly 5s for a reason. I just put 3 there by mistake. So it's 5 weekly slot. Listen, it's not that it has to be 5 because of some scientific reason, right? It could be 3. If you have less capacity for whatever reason, make it 3. If you have more time, make it 6. I wouldn't go over 5, but I've seen people doing 3s instead of 5s. It just depends on how much capacity your plant has at this stage, okay? Then, as we said before, time box the rest accordingly. So you have booked the 5 things that you want to get done, which is probably more project-based through the week. You have booked the 3 things you want to do on Monday. Then you're going to book when you're going to be working out. And maybe that's doing 20 push-ups and 50 jumping jacks in your household, fine. But, book that so that you know exactly when you're going to be tackling that. You allow yourself not to get into the procrastination choice mode. Book your meals, book whatever you need to do at home, and try to plan that with a little bit of a deliberate sense, okay? We'll go through the questions later, if you don't mind. And then this is very important, be conservative. I normally book only 70% of the available time, and I leave Thursdays and Fridays quite free. Why? Because what ends up happening most of the time is that I need to have some overflow capacity towards the end of the week to accommodate the stuff that I know I'm not going to be getting to in time. It's quite rare that I get to Wednesday afternoon having done everything, or at least having completed, let's say, 3 out of the 5 weekly 5s. Very difficult. I normally have to move things around, but I leave some space so I can do that. Otherwise, you're just going to choke out. And if you have a millimetric planning on your calendar for every day of the week, you're going to find out that the first call that you get from a client that you were not expecting, or the first demand that or request from your boss, everything is going to blow up in air. So be sure that you have a lot of slack. That's why I'm telling you guys, if you need to go down to 3 in the week instead of 5 in the week, so be it, right? It's important that we know exactly how much time we have for stuff. So this is how it looks like. You do your weekly plan. You can start with these 5 weekly tasks, and then you divide your day into the morning and the afternoon. Why am I doing this? Because you're gonna have different energy levels. Trust me, you're a lot more prepared to tackle the challenging stuff, or maybe dealing with the more stuff that requires more cognitive load, or maybe emotional load at the beginning of the day than at 3 in the afternoon. I guess that this is quite natural to everybody, but people tend to neglect this. So place your high cognitive load activities on the mornings and try to leave the more social and process-driven activities in the afternoon. And then you're just trying to put 3 slots for these things. The rest of the stuff, you need to put it in the calendar, batch it when possible, right? So one thing that works really well, if you have to talk to clients, don't talk to clients at 9, then go back to your proposal, then try to talk to a client at 11. To the extent that you can, try to put those calls together, because your brain, when you start doing client calls, is going to be primed for client calls, right? So you do one call, you hang out, you you do another call, then you do another call, and maybe you take in 40 minutes, but your brain was prepared for that. So the first task is in broken dots because there may be a task that you need to change or a new one that you need to put in, right? That's why there's nothing more than that. So be very conscious of how you're using your time, right? It's not really a good use of your time to go down and manage your email for 5 minutes and then get in a call with a client and then try to get some written work done, right? Maybe just do 30 minutes of focused work on your email and stop doing it altogether to the extent that you close the email client and you reopen that at noon, right? And then you do another 30 minutes of focus work. I cannot insist on this more. It's amazing how our productivity changes when the email client is actually closed and there's no kind of, notification on or red dot with the number inside. It really works really well. Now, you may not have done this in the past, but I think, I find this to be quite useful. Have you ever thought about the nature of your tasks? So I built this matrix to help you do this. This is based on the Eisenhower matrix, but it's tweaked to reflect effort versus impact, right? We have things that take more effort, more cognitive load, more emotional load. It may be a difficult conversation that you're going to struggle, you don't want to have it, right? And then you're going to have things that take less effort. And then you need to measure by impact, right? So as you can see here, again, weekly 3s, weekly 5s, right? But should be weekly 5s. You want to be devoting the prime time of your week to this quadrant. And then you want to make sure that through the day, you can still get some daily easy wins, right? Quick wins. Shallower work slots where you move things forward that are also important. They have a high impact, but low effort, right? This may be a particular email to a client, or this may be just making sure that you're sending the right proposal, or you're sharing an article with someone that is a high value prospect, right? It doesn't have to be complex, but it has to be impactful, right? That's where the daily 3s go. The weekly 5s tend to be more project-driven work. Now, what about the low impact, low effort? Batching. This is the word of the day. Batching, okay? We put all the things that look similar to each other in batches, and we try to put them together, and we make a very, very conscious effort of the time we're devoting to that. So you want to do LinkedIn? Okay, do LinkedIn, but make sure that you're doing that maybe when you're also managing your email, okay? So that your brain is kind of prepared to that social interaction. That's going to take a lot of pressure, and it's going to protect the time that you need to protect to do the really key stuff, okay? What about the stuff that is high effort and low impact? Well, I would really invite you guys to think very hard about these things, right? If you find yourself in this quadrant all the time, then you have to really think about how you're distributing your day. And someone was asking, time management is more difficult as bosses expect to join every webinar, Skype, weekly. Well, I really challenge you guys to start saying no to stuff. Really, it's as simple as that. If you're not in control of your calendar, even in a percentage of your time, then you have to have a conversation with someone, because you need to be able to produce your quality work as well. So if you find yourself here, you need to get more empowered as to how you're using your time. I'm going to give you an example. I'm not the owner of Talengo, the firm I'm working with, by any means. But I made it very clear that for me, Mondays would be my time for follow-up and for client development work. I wanted to be sure that I didn't get into any calls or any meetings on Mondays. And I put it on my calendar. That's what Mondays is about. And I have a block from 8 in the morning to 8 in the afternoon. And I was very respectful, but I was very assertive as well in telling people that I needed that time to do my job. And then Tuesdays and Thursdays are days for clients. Wednesdays are days for execution, when I'm meeting with candidates, when I'm getting proposals done, right? Fridays, it's my admin day. Everyone around me knows that. I will make exceptions, of course. This is not, something that I set in stone, but it helps me to have a framework where I know exactly the important stuff for my business, where it's actually fitting, right? And then, it's important that, this is something I got from Jack Dorsey, the founder of Twitter and Square. He basically schedules his Mondays, I think it was for marketing, then Tuesdays for admin, Wednesday for investors, Thursdays for marketing, I think. So, your body, your brain, if you're talking to clients, you're going to be primed to continue to talk to clients, right? You're going to avoid something we're going to check in a minute, which is the attention residue. If you move from client activity, and I'm going to talk about it right now, the attention choppers, we're going to chop them, okay? Beware of the attention residue. What is the attention residue? Well, basically, when you get distracted, when you're doing some focused work and you get distracted, that distraction goes, back and forth. Going back and forth to something that you were doing is going to take away probably 10 points of your IQ. That's actually some research that has been done. So it takes away intellectual capacity. What happens is that what the attentional residue calls upon is you normally go, if you're distracted, if I'm doing a presentation here and my wife comes in and she tells me, what do you want for dinner? And then I go back, I normally take between 15 and 20 minutes to go back to the same level of concentration I had before. And this happens to everyone. By the way, multitasking is BS. I hate it, and you should hate it as well. We're not made for multitasking. We're made to actually do focus work in short batches, in short periods. So be very, very aware of the attention residue. As I said before in the presentation, pair your tasks with your energy levels through the day. Don't get the stuff that Dirk Dirk is asking to slow down. Well, the fact is, we're going to finish in the next 5 minutes because I'm going to leave some space for questions and you're going to get the slides. Unfortunately, the time we have is limited. Pair your tasks with your energy levels through the day, make sure that you're tackling the challenging stuff when your energy levels and your circadian rhythms are in sync with those tasks. Okay. As we said, use the tasks and the theme batching to increase your focus. Okay, so make sure that you're theming by, if you're going to be talking to clients, try to stick to clients for a while because it's going to help your concentration. If you're moving from clients to written work to email management, the amount of focus you're going to put on the three things is a lot less than if you devote a good 2-hour block to client work and a good 2-hour work to proposal work with maybe 15 or 20 minutes of rest in the middle. Okay, this is really important. It's going to help you a lot. I think that this is kind of productivity 101, but I still see a lot of people with notifications on, right? Notifications off, guys. You're not a hostage to your phones or your emails. They are tools that need to serve you when it matters. Someone was asking what happens when we are struggling with access to internet and social media. Well, you can force yourself to get offline with Forest. Forest is a tool, is an app that basically allows you to, if you respect the times that you're going to be off the internet and they're going to basically switch it off, they're going to be helping replanting some rainforest somewhere. So that's really cool. And then Zero Willpower is the same, right? It will chop off the access and it will make it very difficult for you to get back online. You can, but it will be very difficult in the time lapse that you have suggested. So again, what are these tools for? They are tools to design your environment. If the environment is giving you different ways of cheating, right? Then trust me, you're going to succumb to the influence of those tools. So make sure that you're giving yourself the opportunity to focus. And if you need to use one of these tools to get yourself off the internet, so be it. The tools are there. We need to just use them, right? And then you can also, get into agreement with coworkers or people at home to make sure that you're complying with yourself. So maybe you just tell someone, look, I'm going to be offline for 2 hours. Please, make sure that you're not talking to me. And, if I end up talking to you in these 2 hours, then I'm going to buy you coffee next time. Again, simple stuff, but this is how it works. Okay. And I'm going to finish with best practices while working remotely. So before I joined Talengo at the beginning of 2019, for 5 years, I was running an investment bank that I co-founded with two partners in Africa. So we had 40 people working out of Mozambique, Zimbabwe, London, and Madrid. So we were born online and we were born remote. So these are some tools that may help you guys make the most of the social interactions when you need to do them through maybe Zoom or whatever other tools, right? The first one is dress the part, of course. You know, we know about that already, so don't have to insist on that. The second is beware of group chats. I guess most of you use Slack or some other similar tools. Group chats should be treated like saunas. You go in, you spend 15 minutes, you leave. Okay, saunas, not a relaxing spa, because you know, before you notice, you're going to be spending 2 and 3 hours chatting to people. So go in, do what you need to do. Maybe you can use the batching, right? And you can go into the chats and then leave. Make sure that you're giving yourself an asynchronous communication opportunity so that you can leave spaces in the middle where you can get work done. Avoid the email slippery slope. If you exchange more than 3 emails on a topic, pick up the phone. Trust me, rule of thumb, 2, 3 emails on the same topic. And if you and it gets worse, if you're copying like 10 people, forget about that. Ask yourself, do I need to be copied here? Do I need to copy this person? And if you're exchanging more than 3 emails, pick up the phone and have a conversation. Trust me, it can really improve things. Don't be silent, be present. If you're joining a webinar or you're joining not a webinar, apologies, you're joining a group chat with your team, right? Don't just be there, right? The same way that you wouldn't join a meeting if you have nothing to say, okay? If you just need to be a listener, ask people to send you the recording. But it's a bad use of your time to be there and not contribute to anything, and it's a bad use of their time inviting you for not contributing, okay? Hyperset expectations. So if you're going to be dealing with meetings online, there's a lot of friction, right, that we need to get over with. And if you set up expectations of what that meeting is for and what you're going to be using it for and what is the end result that everyone is aspiring to get, very important, pre-work and post-work. Make sure that you're sending enough pre-work so that you make the most of the time online and that you have enough post-work so that you can complete things in time, okay? Prevent slide fatigue, right? Don't bring 80 slides to a presentation. Less text, more spoken content so that people can empathize with what you're saying and you can create a dynamism, right? But don't do the classic, corporate finance decks with, 1,000 words on each deck. That does not going to help anyone. Use the chat if you need to interact privately with people or if you need to ask for opinions. Check for polls. Are people dead or are they alive? If you need to vote on stuff or get the team to make a decision, make sure that you have a poll prepared so that you can launch it and people can vote. It's a lot better than having to ask everyone to raise their hand and say the thing, right? And allow for people to get more time to decide. It's a lot more difficult to get to decisions when you're not physically in touch because we're losing a very important part of communication, which is the non-verbal communication. So that is going to add a weight to the decision-making process. Just be aware of that. So recapping, we know that we can control our mindset, okay? We've looked into ways of accepting and getting ourselves out of the physical discomfort that some of the tasks and maybe the environment and the noise that we have around us is forcing us to have. We have learned a little bit more about designing our environment, right? Not being triggered, but being in control of what happens, either controlling the internet, controlling our desk, controlling how we feel about our workday by just being dressed and having, getting off our slippers. That's important. Our intention, we can definitely control our intention. We can control how we plan our week. We can control how we use That's those 60 minutes. If there's just one takeaway you guys can get away from today with, 60 minutes on Sundays will definitely transform how your productivity operates through the week. So really, really use that time, okay? And then the level of effort, right? As I said, all of these 4 things, they are a product. If you're not making sure that all of them are present in some way, they have to be above 0. Otherwise, this framework doesn't work. I'm going to finish with a sentence that quote that I love from Will Durant. We are what we repeatedly do, and excellence then is not an act, but a habit. So don't think of excellence as that thing that you do one day to, you get to the day and say, oh, today was an amazing day. Don't get to life-changing, life-transforming changes. Try to get stuff done that is small, but progressive and linear. And you will be amazed how, if you can start ingraining all of these things that we have discussed today into habits, that is going to transform your productivity in a big, big way. So that's it from me. This is my email, and this is and with my name, you can get in touch on LinkedIn. On LinkedIn, I tend to share brief posts with content consistent with what we saw today and some other stuff. Don't be a stranger. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn. Drop a line telling me that you attended the webinar. By the way, this is professional etiquette. There's nothing worse than trying to connect with someone on LinkedIn and not even giving that person one-liner to explain why you're trying to connect with that person. So try to be the right person connecting with everyone, and I will be very glad to connect with you guys on LinkedIn. Maria, back to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rafael. The same thing happened this morning. Everybody was really amazed and very concentrated on all the things you were sharing with us. So it's time for questions. Yes, I was writing down the readings, recommendations, and the apps. So I'm going to put it here on the chat. But I think this morning there was an additional reading. I'm not sure. So let me put it here.
So yeah, I'm going to write them down. So if just hang out, guys, just a minute on the chat. Let me just type down the books. So deep work on Newport. 7 habits of highly effective people by Stephen Covey. What else? Triggers by Marshall Goldsmith. I think we recommended these 3 books. And then for productivity, I'm using Todoist as a tool, which is quite straightforward, and you can really customize it with tags and stuff. So
yeah. Everybody's saying thank you. But well, we've tackled some of the questions throughout the presentation. Let me see. What do you recommend to do for a person who's looking for a new job and their time depends on uncontrolled external inputs? Okay, that's one of the questions. Interviews, webinars, etc.
Yeah, I think that this is a time to ramp up your learning. So I always think when I help people that are in professional transitions, I always say that we have 2 kinds of goals. We have learning goals and we have relationship goals. And learning goals, they relate to how you're learning about yourself, your skills, your career capital, your expertise, your motives, right? The kind of problems you want to solve in life so that you can direct your skills toward a certain line of work. And that's kind of a work that you do inside. But when you break out and you go out, you need to, you pick up your professional identities, the hypotheses that you think can work, and you need to start bouncing them back from people. So it's difficult to do that right now. So focus on the learning goals. What are the things that will make you a credible candidate? And work on developing that self-awareness around your skills and your strengths. By the way, you can still connect with people on LinkedIn. I have, if you go to Medium, I'm going to help you here, just one second. You go to Medium and you look me up on my profile. There, you'll find an article called How to Network with People You Don't Know to Get the Job You Want. Check it out. It's something we have developed with, we did a little study with some of the Master in Finance students in IE, and we devised a completely revolutionary networking mechanism that is going to help you network with people. And you can do this online. You can do that through LinkedIn and on phone calls, and it really works. So if you can't really have coffees with people, start by reaching out, mapping out your relevant network depending on the identities you want to work with, and then try to reach out people in LinkedIn using the framework, and you'll see that you'll get results.
Fantastic. Thank you, Rafael. Okay, and Maria is asking, as a student, do you think it's necessary to take a day off, or should we do our planning from Saturday to Sunday? Thank you, Rafael.
Look, what I do normally on Saturday morning is I work on my coaching practice. So I make sure that I'm where I am following through with my clients and everything that is happening there. But take deliberate downtime. You need to rest, and you need to disconnect. So it's important that you take time off. I would say, you can do a lot of stuff in 5 days through the week. If you're not getting rest, you're going to get injured. This is like working out. This is like doing professional sports, right? If you need to work out intensely, and you need to make sure that you get rest for your brain. Otherwise, you're not going to tackle the following week with the same intensity, and then you just go down through the spiral. Social media, Miguel, yep. Just make sure that you use any of the tools that we recommended to get offline. And you know what I've done in the past? I've got clients to sign contracts with themselves. So we have drafted a one-pager contract with that with my client would say the stuff that he really wants to get off. And he would say, if I feel the urge to go into social media, I will do X. So you do an if-then methodology, right? You foresee the different situations in which you may be drawn into that social media or that addiction, and you tell yourself how you're going to be reacting in a way that you feel proud with yourself. And for some people will see, I had a client that said, if I feel the urge to go into social media, I will open my Kindle app instead and read for 5 minutes, right? It seems stupid. You could say, yeah, but you can do something else, right? Even if you have it on your contract, you can do otherwise. Well, trust me, try getting that contract on a piece of paper, sign it, get someone to see it so that they know you're working on that, and then try to see if you're making it more difficult to yourself to go to social media if you said you would open the Kindle app instead. Fantastic,
Rafael. Thank you so much. Again, yes, we've shared the link, but yes, the recording will be ready in a couple of days, and you can check it out here in this link I just shared with you. Okay, all the different recordings, all the different sessions will be there, so you can go through Rafael's session again and again to follow all the steps. Okay. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, Rafael. It was a real pleasure to talk to you today again. And well, thank you so much for being connected. Have a great week, all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good luck.
Bye.
Good luck.